Deep in Rwanda's misty mountains, where ancient volcanoes pierce the clouds, a rescue mission turned into something nobody could have predicted. As park rangers raced against time to save a dying gorilla from a massive python's crushing grip, they witnessed an act so shocking, so utterly unthinkable, that it would challenge everything they thought they knew about loyalty, sacrifice, and the bonds that connect us all. What happened next left even the most experienced wildlife experts speechless. The emergency radio crackled to life at 6:47 a.m., shattering the peaceful morning routine at Volcanoes National Park headquarters in Rwanda. Code Red, giant python attacking gorilla family in Sector 7. We need immediate backup. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The voice of Ranger Mukamana carried pure panic as she transmitted from the misty slopes of Mount Karisimbi, where the morning fog still clung to ancient bamboo forests like ghostly fingers. Within minutes, the park's elite emergency response team was racing up treacherous mountain paths in their modified all-terrain vehicles, medical equipment and tranquilizer gear rattling in the back. Team leader Dr. James Uwimana had seen countless wildlife emergencies in his 15-year career, but nothing had prepared him for the scene that awaited them in the heart of the Virunga Mountains. There, in a clearing surrounded by towering hagenia trees and dense fern undergrowth, lay a nightmare that defied explanation. A colossal African rock python, nearly 18 feet of prehistoric muscle and calculated hunger, had somehow managed to ambush and coil around Mukamana, a beloved 12-year-old female gorilla known throughout the research community for her gentle nature and protective instincts toward younger gorillas. The serpent's diamond-patterned coils wrapped around her torso like steel cables, each ring of muscle methodically compressing her ribcage and cutting off her ability to breathe. Mukamana's usually bright brown eyes were beginning to glaze over as consciousness slipped away, her powerful arms that could snap thick branches now weakly clawing at the suffocating embrace. The morning air, typically filled with the musical calls of golden monkeys and the rustle of bamboo leaves, had fallen into an unnatural silence. Even the ever-present mountain insects seemed to pause their buzzing, as if nature itself was holding its breath, witnessing this impossible confrontation between two of Africa's most formidable creatures. Dr. Uwimana's hands trembled as he reached for his emergency tranquilizer rifle, knowing that one wrong shot could kill either the gorilla or cause the python to tighten its deadly grip even further.
Mukamana's world had collapsed into a nightmare of crushing pressure and fading light. This gentle giant, who had spent 12 years roaming freely through the misty bamboo forests of the Virunga Mountains, now found herself trapped in a living vice that tightened with each labored breath. Her powerful chest, which had weathered countless mountain storms and territorial disputes, heaved desperately as the python's coils compressed her ribcage like a slowly closing fist. The pain was beyond anything she had ever experienced. Each attempt to draw air into her lungs felt like breathing through a straw, and dark spots began dancing at the edges of her vision. Her massive arms, capable of bending thick bamboo stalks and defending her family from leopards, now felt like lead weights as she weakly clawed at the serpent's muscular body. The python's scales, smooth and cold as river stones, offered no grip for her desperate fingers. Mukamana had always been known throughout the research community as the peacekeeper of her troop, the gentle female who mediated conflicts and protected younger gorillas with unwavering devotion. She had survived poacher encounters, territorial battles, and the harsh mountain weather that could change from sunshine to hail in minutes. But this silent predator had caught her completely off guard during her morning foraging routine. As consciousness began to slip away like morning mist dissolving in sunlight, Mukamana's thoughts turned to her family. Somewhere in the forest, her young nephew Ishima was probably searching for her, wondering why she hadn't returned with the sweet bamboo shoots she had promised to find. Her sister, Naira Mwinza, would be growing worried, pacing the familiar paths they had walked together for years. The most heartbreaking part wasn't her own approaching death. It was the knowledge that she would never again feel the warm embrace of her family, never again share quiet moments grooming with her loved ones under the canopy of ancient trees. Her gentle brown eyes, usually sparkling with intelligence and maternal warmth, now reflected only the growing darkness of her fading world.
Dr. Uwimana and his three-person emergency team crouched behind a massive fallen Hagenia tree, their hearts pounding as they assessed the impossible situation unfolding before them. Through their binoculars, they could see every horrifying detail of Kubana's struggle, but any direct intervention carried catastrophic risks. One wrong move with a tranquilizer dart could cause the python to reflexively tighten its coils, crushing the life from the gorilla in seconds. The team leader's weathered hands, steadied by 15 years of wildlife emergencies, now trembled as he calculated angles and dosages that could mean the difference between rescue and tragedy. Behind him, Ranger Sarah Mutoni whispered urgently into her radio, coordinating with veterinary specialists back at headquarters who were frantically consulting python behavior research and emergency protocols that had never been tested in real-world conditions. Dr. Uwimana had dedicated his entire career to protecting these magnificent mountain gorillas, watching them grow from playful infants to majestic adults. He knew Kubana personally, had observed her gentle interactions with younger gorillas, documented her remarkable intelligence, and even given her the name that meant to see in Kinyarwanda because of her exceptionally observant nature. But now, despite all his training, all his experience with dangerous wildlife encounters, he felt utterly helpless. The specialized equipment designed for gorilla emergencies, nets, barriers, distraction devices, was useless against an 18-foot python that had already secured its prey. Even their most powerful tranquilizer rifles carried too much risk. Hitting the python might cause muscle spasms that would crush Kubana, while hitting the gorilla could slow her breathing at the worst possible moment. The team had arrived expecting to implement standard emergency protocols, but this situation existed in uncharted territory. There were no textbook solutions, no established procedures for a scenario that wildlife experts had considered virtually impossible. African rock pythons and mountain gorillas inhabited different elevations, different hunting grounds, different worlds entirely. As precious seconds ticked away and Kubana's struggles grew visibly weaker, Dr. Uwimana realized they were witnessing something that might end in heartbreak despite their best efforts and years of preparation. Through the misty morning air, a sound emerged that made every ranger's blood run cold, the deep, resonant chest beating of an approaching silverback. The rhythmic pounding echoed through the bamboo forest like distant thunder, growing closer with each passing second. Dr. Uwimana's radio crackled as Ranger Mutoni's voice whispered urgently, "Massive silverback approaching from the east. It's Gahigi." Gahigi was legendary among the research community, a 400-pound silverback whose name meant the hunter in Kinyarwanda. At 28 years old, he commanded absolute respect throughout the Virunga Mountains, his massive frame and battle-scarred knuckles telling the story of countless territorial victories. He had never shown interest in Kubana's family group, maintaining his solitary existence in the higher elevations where few dared to venture. As the enormous silverback emerged from the morning mist like a prehistoric specter, the rangers held their breath. His silver-streaked back caught the filtered sunlight as he surveyed the scene with intelligent dark eyes that seemed to process every detail instantly. The python, sensing this new and formidable presence, raised its massive head defensively while maintaining its death grip on Kubana. What happened next defied every principle of guerrilla behavior the rangers had studied. Instead of the territorial display they expected, Gahigi stopped 20 feet away and simply observed. His usual aggressive posturing was replaced by something far more complex, a careful assessment that revealed an intelligence most humans never credited to wild animals. Kubana's fading eyes found Gahiji's powerful presence through her pain-clouded vision. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. In that moment, something passed between them that transcended typical gorilla social structures. She wasn't part of his family group, wasn't under his protection, wasn't even from his territory. Yet as their gazes met across the clearing, an unspoken understanding seemed to bridge the gap between stranger and victim. Dr. Uwimana watched through his binoculars as Gahiji tilted his massive head, studying the python's coiled position with the methodical patience of a strategist rather than an impulsive aggression of a typical silverback confronting a threat. The morning air hung heavy with tension as three species, human, gorilla, and serpent, created an unprecedented triangle of crisis in the heart of Africa's ancient mountains. What unfolded next shattered every established understanding of gorilla social hierarchy and territorial behavior. Kubana, despite the crushing agony that racked her body, managed to extend one trembling arm toward Gahiji in a gesture that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. Her massive hand, usually reserved for gentle grooming and protective embraces within her own family group, reached across the invisible boundaries that separated their different worlds. The movement was barely perceptible, weakened by the python's relentless constriction, but its meaning resonated through the misty clearing like a thunderclap. She was asking for help from a silverback who owed her nothing, who had no evolutionary obligation to risk his life for an outsider. In the rigid social structure of mountain gorilla communities, such cross-group appeals simply didn't exist. Gahiji stood motionless, his massive silver-backed frame creating an imposing silhouette against the bamboo forest. His intelligent dark eyes studied Kubana's desperate gesture, processing a request that challenged every instinct of territorial dominance and self-preservation that had kept him alive for 28 years. The morning mist swirled around his powerful shoulders as he weighed an impossible decision. Dr. Uwimana watched through his binoculars as this unprecedented communication unfolded before his eyes. In 15 years of gorilla research, he had never witnessed anything remotely similar. A dying female from one group appealing to a dominant male from another territory. The scientific implications were staggering, but the emotional weight of the moment transcended academic interest. The python, perhaps sensing the shift in dynamics, tightened its coils another degree. Kubana's breath came in shorter, more desperate gasps as her extended arm began to tremble uncontrollably. Her eyes, clouding with approaching unconsciousness, remained fixed on Gahiji's imposing presence with a pleading intensity that seemed to bridge the gap between species and touch something fundamentally human in its desperation. Time seemed suspended in the mountain air as the legendary silverback processed this request that defied nature itself. A plea from stranger to stranger, from the dying to the living, from one soul to another across the vast divide of gorilla social boundaries. Gahiji's massive frame remained statue still, but behind his intelligent dark eyes, a storm of ancient instincts battled against something far more complex. 28 years of survival in the unforgiving Virunga Mountains had taught him that interference in other struggles often meant death. Silverbacks who abandoned caution for heroics rarely lived to see their next birthday, and the mountain forests were littered with the bones of those who had chosen valor over wisdom. Every fiber of his being screamed warnings about the 18-foot python coiled before him. African rock pythons were not native to these high altitudes, but their reputation for crushing power was legendary even among the mountain's apex predators. His own massive strength, which could snap thick bamboo stalks and send leopards fleeing in terror, might be useless against a serpent designed by millions of years of evolution to squeeze the life from prey much larger than himself. Yet something deeper stirred within his broad chest as he watched Kubana's desperate struggle. Perhaps it was the memory of his own mother, lost to poachers when he was barely old enough to survive alone. Or maybe it was the recognition of pure, helpless suffering that transcended every boundary nature had constructed between competing groups. Her extended arm trembled with the last reserves of strength she possessed, and in that gesture he saw something that touched a part of his consciousness that had nothing to do with territory or dominance. The rangers watched in breathless silence as Gahiji's massive hands slowly clenched into fists, his knuckles bearing the scars of countless battles that had established his legendary status. His breathing deepened, chest expanding as he drew in the misty mountain air that might soon carry the scent of his own blood. Dr. Uwimana felt his heart pounding as he witnessed this internal struggle playing out across the silverback's weathered features. In that moment, Gahiji wasn't just a wild animal following instinct. He was a conscious being, weighing the value of another's life against his own survival, making a choice that would define not just this moment, but the very nature of compassion itself. With a movement that seemed to shake the very foundations of the mountain, Gahiji stepped forward. His 400-pound frame moved with surprising grace across the clearing, each footfall deliberate and measured, despite the urgency of Kubana's fading condition. The morning mist swirled around his massive silver-streaked shoulders as he approached the deadly tableau, his dark eyes never leaving the python's raised head. The serpent immediately recognized this new threat, its cold reptilian intelligence assessing the approaching danger. Its massive, triangular head swiveled toward Gahiji, while its body maintained its crushing grip on Kubana, creating an impossible defensive position. The python's forked tongue flicked rapidly, tasting the air for pheromones that might reveal the silverback's intentions. Dr. Uwimana held his breath as he watched through his binoculars, his finger hovering over the tranquilizer rifle's trigger. The distance was too great for an accurate shot, and any intervention now might trigger a catastrophic response from either the python or the silverback. His team remained frozen behind their fallen tree barrier, witnesses to a confrontation that defied every protocol in their emergency manual. Gahiji stopped just 8 feet from the python's head, close enough to strike, far enough to assess. His massive hands hung at his sides, fingers flexing as he studied the serpent's coiled position with the methodical patience of a strategist. Unlike the impulsive charges typical of silverback territorial displays, this approach demonstrated a level of tactical thinking that amazed the watching researchers. The python hissed, a sound like escaping steam that echoed through the bamboo forest. Its powerful body rippled with tension as it prepared to defend its prey against this unprecedented challenger. But Gahiji didn't respond with the explosive aggression everyone expected. Instead, he began to circle slowly, his intelligent eyes mapping every coil, every vulnerable point where the serpent's grip might be weakened. The legendary silverback was planning something, and as his massive frame moved with predatory grace around the python's position, even the most experienced rangers realized they were witnessing behavior that would rewrite textbooks on great ape intelligence and decision-making. What erupted next was a battle between primal intelligence and prehistoric killing power that shook the very ground beneath the watching rangers' feet. Gahiji launched his assault not with brute force, but with calculated precision that revealed the true depth of great ape problem-solving abilities. He grabbed massive chunks of volcanic rock and hurled them at the python's head with devastating accuracy, each impact designed to distract rather than injure. The serpent writhed and struck upward with lightning speed, its massive jaws snapping inches from Gahishi's face as he danced backward with reflexes that defied his enormous size. But the silverback had anticipated this response. With each strike the python made toward him, its coils around Kubana loosened by precious millimeters. The strategy was working, but at an agonizing pace that might not save the dying gorilla in time. Dr. Uwimana watched in amazement as Gahiji employed tactics that seemed almost human in their sophistication. The silverback would feint left, forcing the python to adjust its defensive position, then immediately attack from the right with a barrage of stones and broken branches. Each maneuver was calculated to create openings without triggering the serpent's instinct to crush its prey. But the python was adapting too. Its ancient intelligence began to recognize the pattern of attacks, and it started coiling its tail around nearby tree roots for additional stability. This allowed it to strike at Gahiji while maintaining most of its crushing pressure on Mukamana, whose breathing had become barely perceptible shallow gasps. The battle reached a critical moment when Gahishi's massive fist connected with the python's skull in a blow that would have shattered concrete. The serpent reeled backward, momentarily stunned, and its grip loosened significantly. But in that same instant, the python's reflexive response was to constrict even tighter, and Mukamana's eyes began to roll back as consciousness finally started to slip away. Time was running out, and even Gahishi's extraordinary intelligence and strength might not be enough to save her. The silverback's chest heaved with exhaustion as he prepared for what might be his final, desperate gambit against this prehistoric killer. In a moment of pure desperation, Gahiji did something that left every ranger speechless. Instead of continuing his strategic attacks, the massive silverback threw himself directly onto the python's midsection, using his 400-pound frame as a living wedge. The impact was tremendous. The sound of flesh meeting muscle echoed through the forest like a thunderclap. The python, caught completely off guard by this suicide assault, reflexively released its grip on Mukamana to defend itself against this new threat. Its massive coils unwound from her torso as it attempted to wrap around Gahiji instead. But the silverback was ready. With explosive power that showcased every ounce of his legendary strength, he rolled away from the serpent's grasping coils while simultaneously grabbing Mukamana's limp form. Dr. Uwimana's team erupted into action as Gahiji dragged the unconscious gorilla to safety behind a cluster of bamboo stalks. The Rangers rushed forward with their emergency medical equipment, their training finally having a chance to make a difference. The python, frustrated and now facing multiple human threats, began its slow retreat into the dense undergrowth. Mukamana's eyes fluttered open as oxygen rushed back into her compressed lungs. Her first sight was Gahiji's massive silver-backed form standing protectively over her, scanning the forest for any remaining danger. The gentle female who had been minutes from death now breathed freely, her chest rising and falling in steady, life-affirming rhythms. As the veterinary team worked to assess for injuries, something extraordinary happened. Mukamana reached up with one trembling hand and gently touched Gahiji's scarred knuckles, a gesture of gratitude that transcended every boundary between their separate worlds. What Gahiji did next was truly unthinkable, something that would be discussed in research journals for decades to come. Instead of returning to his solitary territory as expected, the legendary silverback remained with Mukamana throughout her recovery, standing guard as the veterinary team administered treatment. For 3 days, he maintained a protective vigil that defied every known principle of gorilla territorial behavior. Dr. Uwimana documented something unprecedented: a male silverback adopting a female from outside his group, creating a new family unit that challenged scientific understanding of great ape social structures. Gahiji's actions revealed a level of empathy and conscious choice-making that proved these magnificent creatures possessed emotional depths far beyond what researchers had previously imagined. This extraordinary rescue became more than just a wildlife emergency. It transformed into a powerful testament to the bonds that connect all living beings when compassion overcomes instinct. Gahiji's willingness to risk everything for a stranger demonstrated that heroism isn't limited to humans, and that the capacity for selfless love exists throughout the natural world.
The rangers who witnessed this incredible event returned to their work forever changed, carrying with them proof that in our darkest moments, salvation can come from the most unexpected sources. Gahiji's story reminds us that true strength isn't measured by dominance or territory, but by our willingness to extend ourselves for others, even when logic suggests we should look away. In the misty mountains of Rwanda, a silverback gorilla redefined what it means to be a hero, proving that compassion knows no boundaries, not even those carved by evolution itself.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.